Hey guys, welcome to Think Aside. I'm driving on my way home, and I had some thoughts going on in my head that I wanted to record and make a video about. I've been thinking a lot about fear and the power that the government has and other entities have, and been thinking about what we're willing to give for those, or what we're willing to give for the safety that those entities provide us, whether it's the safety of income, constant income, or whether it's the protection from other governments, or the loss of income, things like that. And my question to you guys is, and what I ask myself is, what are we willing, or what are you willing to give up in the name of safety, in the name of protection? Are you willing to give up your house? Are you willing to give up your religious texts? If it means that, say you give up your Bible, if it means that you take away hate speech from, say, Nazism or something like that. Are you willing to give up your freedom of speech if it means that people can't say negative things, that they can't hurt your feelings? Are you willing to give up your guns if it means that people who are potentially trying to do harm with those weapons can't have them? Are you willing to give up your money so that way other people can have some? What are we willing to give up for safety? Are we willing to give our money in taxes so that way the government can use it to fund our war or fund our safety, our defense? What is it that we're willing to give up for the name of safety, of comfort? I was watching a movie last night called V for Vendetta, and I've seen it before, but it really rang even more true and more relevant today than it ever has. And that is, for those of you who haven't seen it, it talks about how a person with fear gives into the power of another, is the kind of common theme. And it talks about how, if it's a little loud, I don't know if you guys can hear it at the moment, it talks about how a person or a government basically provides a safety in that the government fights constantly that the civilians need them, and so they create all these different narratives and create this virus and all these things that show the civilization that they in fact do need these people, or that they need the government, the people need the government. And we look at it now, and I think there's a lot of similar narratives. You look at the media and how the media works, right? The media, their purpose is to continue to have viewers, and in order to engage the viewers and to get more, they need to have a sense of fear, that sense of reliance that you need to continue watching because there's bad stuff happening or whatever. And so the government does a similar thing. They want to exist, and they want to continue to exist. And something that we kind of forget is that the government exists because we gave them the right to exist. It wouldn't exist without us, right? People didn't just come to this planet, or born on this planet, or start to exist with governments in place. The governments are there because we put them there. That it was something we decided. We decided that we didn't want to handle every day-to-day tasks when it comes to dictating how we're gonna punish one person or another person, or protect these people from that people. We gave that power to a collective, a centralized power, so that way they could handle those things. And that's arguably okay, but it's when you give them too much power to protect you too much that it becomes an issue, right? Because going back to those original questions, what are you willing to sacrifice in the name of that safety? What are you willing to give them so they can give you a little more safety in return, or that illusion of safety. People inherently deserve to live free. We kind of are, well, we're very much responsible for ourselves, and when we choose to no longer be responsible for ourselves and give that power to someone else, then we're now giving them the power to decide our lives, right? And that's a dangerous thing, because now if their interest in our lives is for their benefit, they're not gonna do what's in our best interest. They're gonna do what's in their best interest because it benefits them more. And we have to be aware of that. We have to constantly protect ourselves from that, and to constantly fight back from, that yin and yang, that good and evil, that line. And we have to draw that line and make sure it is an equal balance instead of one overcoming the other. And I mean, I would argue that even the people overcoming the government isn't necessarily bad, as long as there is a form of government that exists. But I'm not saying a revolution of blood or anything like that, but a revolution of technology, a revolution of currency, of power, and sovereignty, allowing us to fight for ourselves, and allowing us to take more matters into our own hands, whether that's retirement or money management, or even small community upkeep when it comes to roads and things like that. Like, of course, that gets into libertarian arguments and things like that, but I do feel that any human should be able to do what they want, as long as it doesn't affect another person. And that's where the libertarianism comes in, where it's don't tread on me, don't affect another person's rights, inherent rights as a human being. I just wanted to kind of voice the concern, and kind of challenge people to think aside the idea that government is necessary, that government, where it is now especially, is what it should be and always has been, so it should be and continue to be. It's it hasn't always been, and at some point it won't be. Like, there's cycles, right? Like, no great civilization lasts forever. It's an unfortunate truth. And though we get closer and closer to something like that, because technology takes its form and it becomes more and more powerful, and then we kind of go away from bloodshed and war in that sense, where we know right now Russia is doing its thing, and it's arguable that even, like, you see now, like, a lot of the war that's being taken place, like, at least the way that we are helping fight that war is more through technology, through the sanctions and things like that. And that, you could argue with sanctions, and the effectiveness is starting to go away, and that's because that we are moving away from a monetary system the way that we have it now. We're going with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and other things. But I just wanted to really challenge the idea that we don't need the government to the extent that we currently have it. And I wanted to hopefully encourage thought that maybe we should take a little more sovereignty for ourselves, and do a little more for ourselves, and rely on more of what we're capable of and what we can be capable of, versus what the government thinks we should be capable of. And because one day what's going to happen is we're going to find that the government has far too much power and can do way too much, at which point we're not going to have much of a chance. It's going to be that much harder to take that power back because they have so much of it. And then you look at, again, going back to V for Vendetta, you see people that are literally being arrested and being executed for having things like religious texts that are banned, for saying things against the government or the leader that they don't agree with. It's a very dangerous world, and if we're not careful, that will come into existence. It's just inevitable. It's how power works. They say, like, power corrupts, and absolute power absolutely corrupts. And that's how it works. When you hand someone a bunch of power and say, here, take care of me, how long is it before they're going to take care of themselves first, right? It's natural. It's nature. Like, we want to inherently take care of ourselves first. We look after ourselves and our loved ones, the one we care about, first. So it's only natural that if you give someone power to take care of you, that they're going to take care of themselves first. And obviously when it comes to a government to people relationship, it doesn't take much for the government not to really care too much specifically about you and more of that greater whole, or what benefits in the long term. And that can be skewed, and that becomes detached from emotion and the human existence. Instead, we kind of focus on what's good for the overall logic of people and civilization, and forget that each individual life matters. That goes into ethics and all that stuff. But yeah, I really challenge you, the viewer, to consider what things you're relying on the government for, or any other power, whether it's your employer, your parents, or your loved ones, anything, and really consider, is it doing you any good, even if it's harmless from they're not maybe the person that's taking care of you doesn't have any ill intentions, but is it beneficial to you? Is it sustainable? Is it something that in 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, is that something that will continue to exist? And when it no longer does, will you be okay? Will you be able to handle it yourself? Will you be that much better off afterward? These are all things we need to think about, so that we can prepare not only ourselves and to take care of ourselves for a better future, but also build a better future for our generations below us, our children and their children and their children's children, and allow them to have the knowledge and the ability to grow in a good civilization, to grow and overcome things that we're facing now and that they will continue to face unless something changes. Then the cycles, right? So they may face something completely different than what we're facing now, but they need to have the knowledge, they need to have the ability to, instead of relying on one entity that will continue to take advantage of them, as we see now and as we've seen before and as we will continue to see. So please think aside. Thank you.